I would ask you to forgive me for sitting, but I am tired. I'd like to explain something. I'm quite surprised of the collection. I didn't know that would be this evening, and I would like to correct one thing about it. It's not my birthday on the 31st of December. It's my mother's birthday. I have never had a birthday. It was my mother's birthday day. And I think we should change all men who said that they had a birthday, or women who have never given birth to a child, should retract the statement and stop honoring ourselves. That day is to honor women who have given birth, and particularly the person to whom the woman has given birth. On the day that that birth was given, we should, as my mother made me do from the day one, so to speak, when I understood what was a birthday. As I said before, a birthday is only for the woman who has given birth. In my mother's case, she had 8 birthdays per year. Unfortunately, only 2 survived of the 8. But however, I know that on December 31st of each year, when I got, from the time I was 6 years old, I had to come to my mother and kneel in front of her and place my face towards her womb, press it there. Most Westerners can't do that because it's too precious a part for a son to be pressing against. People forgot that's the way it came from. And there's no problem to going back there and pressing because you get a second chance to go to heaven. I mean, it is heaven. And we have gotten the European version of it, that everything is dirty and filthy and everything else has to do with that. We've gotten to the point today that the prestige of the mother has gone so poor that men are going with men and decided that it's the same thing. You know, the faggotry has now become, excuse the word, but I only know faggots. You know, you could say, well, you got a new word for it, a European word, but gay. I thought gay was when you're happy. But, you see, I have difficulty with these words, Ms. See, I know a woman is a woman. They got a chairwoman and a chairman. Now I'm supposed to say chairperson. What kind of person? But all right, let's get back to the woman business. And so I generally have to stand up and say, no, it's my mother you're talking about, because that was a happy day. I have had 65 happy days, and this will be my 66th happy day that since that woman had honored me and honored my father, I suppose, much more than myself. I guess he got the benefit of it on both ends. But I got the privilege of being born for both of them. So I proudly, on the 31st of December each year, I remember when I had to kneel in front of my mother and she scolded me, cuffed me, and slapped me at the occasion real seriously when she had to tell me, she started off telling me all the bad things I did that year. I thought that I'd never done anything good when she started. But then somewhere and some point after a few cuffs, she would start to say, well, now let me tell you how proud I am. And that was the nice part. Because now and again she kissed me and so forth. I could realize why my father was such a fool. Because when she kissed me and I'm a son and I felt good, I can imagine when he got kissed. He felt better. And she would then praise me and make me feel really good and make me a Christian, a Jesus. See, my mother, when she finished with all that, she anointed me. You see, the word Joshua Christus is the Greek word meaning Jesus the Anointed. My mother would anoint me. She would take the garlic and the sweet unguents and everything like that and make a kind of an anointment oil, and then she would anoint me to go for the next 12 months of the year. And that was anointment. So when you said Jesus the Christ, all you're saying is Jesus the Anointed. And all mothers in those times used to anoint their sons. They never anointed their daughter because the daughter couldn't go on any journey without her husband. She had to be married to leave the house, whereas the young man would go everywhere. There's an assumption that young men wouldn't mess with anything out there, and young ladies had to be looked out for to make sure they don't mess with anything out there. It wasn't necessarily true, but nevertheless, that's the way things were. About why people give money on many occasions is that, if you would notice, I am never invited by fellow academicians. And that, irrespective of who they are and what they're saying, I am not invited to any of these intellectual gatherings. It's not that I don't have the same preparation and went to the same kind of schools. They went and have taught at the same universities, most of them have taught at, but I don't know how to behave in intellectual gatherings. I went through it, I learned, I can use, and I can go to the cheese and crackers and the different Jewish things, condiments, and that's a word I learned in college. And I can appreciate it, but I don't appreciate borscht and sour pickle and all those kind of things like that. Being African, I like sweet pickle, but because I always around sweet black women, and when I go to these parties, I got a bad habit. I always carry a black woman with me if I'm carrying a woman, and that's not in style, you see. That's because I don't have O.J. Simpson complex or Michael Jackson complex, and because of that, and I fight it all the time. I'm not invited to all, and I'm talking about the black ones, those who preach blackness. They don't invite me either. I mean, you hear professors inviting another professor to come to speak to his class. No professor invites me. No professor, none. I'm invited by the students on campus to come to speak to them. Administrators on campus don't invite me. They don't carry my books in public. Nobody wants to see, if you teach in your administrator in a college, you don't walk with my book and read it on the subway because wrong people may see you. You walk with Bonnell's book, but Bonnell would quote me 60% of his book, but you walk with his book, not mine. Is that proper? So I want you to understand. Now, about the digging, I don't dig anymore in Egypt. As I said, I'll be 76. It's not that I've got so weak after all. I could do some more digging. But the basic amount in my diggings used to come from an African woman. And she is of Egyptian and Nubian background. Her father was Nubian and her mother is Egyptian. And when I say Egyptian, I mean indigenous to that area called Egypt. You could make an error because she got a long straight nose. That's the only thing straight about her. I mean, she's out of kind of straight, but she has kinky hair and whatnot. She's ironing it all the time. I kept telling her, please leave it alone. You're going to burn the little last bit you got of the brain. But I said, and so that it cost her at least $250,000 US dollars per year to do a digging from September to the first part of June. And I used to raise and pick up money in the States, and then she will make the difference. But you know, 15 years of providing that amount of money, there comes a time when the well can't take it. The well needs to be refurbished. So you can't call on somebody else to fill that gap constantly. And so, but the last thing was when the government in Egypt, and Aswan in particular, decided to take a dump truck with dirt and throw it on my digging, and by mistake they said. But it was during the same year, in 1991, when my art festival, an art and history and science festival that I was conducting in Aswan, run into trouble on myself when I was charged in the newspapers and anything of being a subversive and trying to overthrow the Egyptian government and trying to overthrow Islam. and I got $85 million from the white Jews to do that. Man, if that was true, what couldn't I have done with 85 million? I got problem thinking of 85 cents. But anyhow, I went to hell. A number of people were there, Gary Bird and others, and saw the hell I was going through and so forth. But it didn't stop me because I had done much of what they were charging me with, but it had nothing to do with what they really meant, because my people weren't ready for overthrowing themselves, as we aren't ready here to overthrow anything. So when brothers and sisters talk about overthrowing this and fighting this physically, I just listen and have an entertainment. I don't have too much times when I'm entertained. But I'm always entertained when a brother get up and say, brother, we're going to do this. And so I said, they ain't going to do a damn thing. Because if he wasn't doing it, he wasn't going to be advertising it. So you just go ahead and do it. And then when people be dying, then I know he's doing something. But he's just doing it. What he's going to do, he's doing it at the floor right there to impress somebody. So I let the brother get a little chance to woof off. But after that has been finished, and I don't think it's finished. Once in a while, things that happen to me in Egypt that make me know you never. It's just like going. The United States government got in the Truth and Thing bill that they passed where you couldn't go and hear your record and buy the copy. Last time I heard, I had 63 pages, and when I went to find out, I said I had 63 pages, but some things were blocked out. They asked me if I wanted to buy it. I said, no, I have money to waste. Do you think I'm stupid enough to believe that you stopped keeping a check on me? I got to be a real perfect ass to believe that you no longer follow me around and check. You don't have to. You get the information right in the crowd. Somebody is there for you. Right. I mean, and I'm not fooled. And I'm not going around and checking each brother and sister to see which one is doing it. I know it's being done. So with that, I'd like to make it clear. It's like a fellow named Curtis Alexander, Dr. Curtis Alexander, who decided to publish my book without permission, and make the loot and my money. Or other people who decide to do me, because my policy is I will never take a black man to a white justice. I will never take a black sister to a white man to decide for us and my children what is right or what is wrong. Now, because of that, many people abuse me and do different things, knowing that I will not take them to the white man's court. But that policy doesn't change, because it doesn't mean that what they've done to me doesn't hurt. It hurts momentarily. But I could live beyond that because I have support. I have a support system. I got a black woman. I got to make it like that. She has the honor of being a wife. I am one of those who I believe very strongly in polygamy. And I'm not talking about promiscuity. That if you're going to go with a black woman to bed, then you should be willing to marry her. I don't go with any woman that isn't good enough to be a wife. Because if you're not good enough to be a wife, you're not good enough to go to bed with. That's why I don't, like other people, I never bought a contract in my life, don't intend to, because I'm not going with dirt. So if I'm going to get sick, I'm going to have to get sick. Because I'm not going to disrespect a black woman by going to her with a condom. I don't go with that type. You see? Now, if I don't know that she's that type, then I can't be blamed for it. But I will not disrespect her by coming to her with one of those things from Ramsey. See? All right. I just have to make yourself plain why I am controversial even among black professors or black intellectuals. I am controversial because there's certain things I say. If I'm going to take that woman any place, then I want to take her as a wife. I don't want to take her as a woman I sneak in 11, 12 o'clock in the night and sneak out 5 o'clock before daylight. No, I mean, if I can't walk with you in the public and let everybody see you, then I'm not going to walk with you. See, those are some of the things to me that brothers have not been willing to do. And since it is, I have to do this, I'm doing one of the John Clark thing. Talk to you about what I got to say, then I'll deal with the subject for the night. But these things had to be said because it's coming at the end of the Western New Year, Old Year, and it's good to clean the slate to say, to let people know how I am. Staying on what I have always believed from 1939, I have taken the position. I didn't take it carelessly. My father had already warned me. If you take certain positions within a society, particularly one in which you or your people do not govern, there's certain repercussion that you're going to pay. And you must expect it. You must be willing to pay for this. And I don't consider it really a sacrifice. It is not a sacrifice because I was fortunate enough to have a father that was sane to pick out the right kind of woman to marry, a black woman. He could have gone mentally ill and picked him out something else like O.J. Simpson. And then he would have had to ask the community to back him after he had done that. And some of our sisters, and most of our sisters, are really stupid. They are crying now for O.J. Simpson. They are saying that he's a black man. When did he become a black man? O.J. Simpson has been a black man for years. See, to me, you give up your blackness when you disrespect, when you spit in the womb that gets you, you give up the right to be anything. You can't even call a woman your mother. You don't have that right anymore. You spat in her womb. You tell her she's nothing. You kick her in her womb. It's like a man taking his foot and kicking a black woman pregnant in her womb. It's the same thing. It may not be physical, but the fact that which you treat her. If you could go to bed and get a child with a woman, and then the child drowns in a swimming pool, and at that moment you decide to leave that woman and go and get you a white slut, then you have given up all right of respect by the black woman. But the black woman as a mother is such, we understand her, and we understand his mother, that the black woman takes all kind of insult from her black son. But she can't leave because that's something that makes the woman unique in herself, which a brother can never be. And we have to deal with that. We have to see the black woman in the richness she is, in the heavenly person she is. And then from that, if we operate from that standard, then we have no difficulty going on. Because suffering, which I don't enjoy, but suffering is a part of the righteousness to protect the black woman. And if it means that, then one cannot be unrighteous in terms of the black woman. And there is no religion, I would repeat that 2 more times. There is no religion that came out of any other place than the African continent that can honor that African woman. Let me make it clear. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam cannot give to the black woman the type of honor she deserves. It has to be an African religion, not one that adopted African principles, reoriented them, changed them to suit their wretched way of living in the desert, or the wretched way of living in the snow-peak pile, or the wretched way of living anywhere, can give her the honor that the religion which she came from, and I don't even use the word religion, the means of worship of the deity which may be woman, and there is no religion that does not have a goddess or goddesses to complement their god and gods can do the way for the African woman. Right. Because any worship, any deity, any religion that does not have a woman there as a deity or women as deities to complement the god and goddess within the religion is not a religion for me or the African people. Because the woman is part of our deity as much as the man. And I think I want to reestablish what makes me tick, so that when you hear me, you understand why it is I take the position I take. I don't take it intellectually on the basis that, well, I read a study from Professor so-forth or the other professor, the next person. And that's why you would see that I would defy, I would get up and say that Fanon was a pig. That hurt a lot of people. I would get up and say that certain African leaders, like Mandela, is a dog. Talk about it. See, I have no problem. And people watch at me and wonder, what, is this man going crazy? No, I'm not going crazy. Not because a brother is popular or something like that, I'm going to back him. But when a brother in Africa becomes the head of state, and he can't find a sister to be the mistress of state with him, he's a dog. And I ask the dog for forgiveness to mention even the dog because it's an insult to the dog, and the dog has no right being insulted when he didn't do me no wrong. So I withdraw the word, he's less than a dog. And I got difficulty even describing that. So that when a man like Fanon and all of them could write all those beautiful things and die and leave their money to the cracker woman, then I gotta say, don't line me up with them kind of people. They are not my people. And you could find everything great about their writing, but my point is, you can write what the hell you want. That's right. It is how you live that's going to deal with me. You can't write me a beautiful speech saying how great black woman is, and then you can't find one to marry. When the thing comes down, you went up with a cracker broad, and that's the only time I call a sister broad. Crackers are the only broad. Sisters can never bear broad. You understand? We got to get this straight. And so you understand now why I'm controversial even to black folks, to black intellectuals. Because somebody said, are you prejudiced? Are you damn right I'm prejudiced? I prejudge things. Yeah. And that's why sisters don't understand me with their modern self. The other day a sister said, you looking at me just a sex object. You're damn right. I mean, good as you look. You coming down the street looking all sweet and got all them succulent things up there. And, I mean, God damn, you don't want to look like a European woman. Be proud. Be proud of every bump you got. The front bump, the back bump. And when I look at you, I say, good, Google move. You be happy because I am praising you. I'm going out my mind trying to dig you. So you got to understand, when I watch you and trying to pick out one of you, it's hard when I can get. It's hard for me to watch all these sisters here and to have to pick out one. I said, Cracker get no problem. He look like death when he see all of them. So he just go to his computer and pick out one. You see, they got dating thing and computer thing. But when a brother watch one of you sisters, look, that's your woman, Brian, but I'm not. I'm just looking because I know you got good eyes. But when I turn around, sister, and I look at you, you flip me. And then when you whip some brain on me too, you know. My wife understands I got her 44 years. She understands what it is. And she said, well, I know you're going to look. The sister understands me. And she know I will look and take a hard look. Because she understands how she is. That it was hard not to look at her. It's hard not. So I had to make that kind of my old year statement and my new year declaration. In order to be that way, and then to raise a family. You see, my policy is, I would prefer to take a child from a sister that may not be mine. She said, well, this is your child. I'm pregnant for you. To take the child that belongs to somebody else, than to deny a child that might have been mine. I have to realize that that child she gave me, although it might not have been mine, is better than any Rolls Royce you bring up. Because that eventually the child will give me a glass of water or a cup of tea or something to eat or some bread one day. And you would not complain if a man left you with a Rolls Royce, a house, a yacht, or condominium, you're not going to say, don't leave me with that. But you're going to say, don't leave me with the child. Are you saying that the condominium and all those things is better than the child? No, I don't believe that. That's why I adopted 8 children in my life. 12 biological children I just lost my second oldest girl in June. And I had 12 biological offered to me by 4 different women, 2 or 3 of which died. I got so good to them they couldn't take no more. And this one, Gertrude, she's trying to see if I'm not going to die first. So I told her, I said, I refuse to go before you. Because I want to be here to be able to make sure your grave is in good order. And she's trying to show me she's going to be here to make sure my grave is in order. But with all that, I'm saying to you, we have to take more black children. We have gotten to the stage now that white folks are adopting black children and got them like you got little parakeet. That's all they're doing. I mean, to show how good they are, and we run around with the latest Cadillac, the latest Duesenbergs and whatnot and whatever, but we can't afford one little black child. No, I said to her that my daughters adopt, and my sons adopt besides their own. And if we follow those policies, to me, in my little way of thinking, we will alleviate much of the hardship we've got, and then we will go back. About Nubia or Sudan, and for that matter, Ethiopia. I had a rich privilege, and I'm glad that I pick out the parents, it seems as if I knew who I was going to get me, because they were parents who, fortunately, just came from the right place. I had a father that came from Gondar, Ethiopia, northwest Ethiopia, born of a group of people that even in Ethiopia weren't wanted. I was born from an Ethiopian Hebrew, which Westerners call, and in Ethiopia they call us Falasha, meaning people without a statue, strangers, funny people, don't belong. And that's what the word Falasha means in Amharic, a people without a mooring. I was called as a young boy a Chankala. Chankala means an African. Here I am in Africa, in Ethiopia, but Ethiopians calling me an African. Because we were given some jive that we are Hamitic, Shemitic, and all kind of ticks and wicks that don't mean a damn thing, imposed on us by a guy called Selassie. I was born under that condition. I born as a young man where I had to get off the few sidewalks that they had. I had to get off it when certain Christians passed. I could not be on the same sidewalk. I had to walk off. That's the culture in which I came. My mother was born in Puerto Rico, in the Caribbean. Some people call it the West Indies. I don't know the place, West Indies. I thought India was at the southern end of Asia. But so I've never seen a West Indian in my life. I've seen black folks, Africans, who call themselves West Indians. They're stupid enough to not know. And even those with the biggest education still call themselves West Indians. Well, she was of Yemenite parents who had gone to Spain and wound up in Puerto Rico. And that happened to be my mother. They were also called in Puerto Rico Maranas, people of Marana family. It meant the black-skinned Jews of Spain. And they moved on and came down to the Caribbean. In every one of the islands ruled by Spain at one time or the other. So it gave me an opportunity to have a background of the homeland, the motherland, and of the Caribbeans. And a little, if you could say, and I minimize it, and my mother did, having to do with that Asian peninsula, was inhabiting long before the Arabs got there. coming down from a part of the Caucasus Mountain. That peninsula was occupied by another group of people that goes back to biblical, the Hebrew biblical days. I'm not dealing with the European Kazakhs. I'm dealing with the earliest Hebrews that's supposed to have come from the land of Chaldea, around the city of Ur. Now, with that, understanding that background, and believing that that background, particularly the second part, dominated my character because that's all I was taught. In my youth, I had gone from, in 1924, my father was assigned by the Lidyasu government. That's the government that Selassie overthrew. Lidyasu was the grandson of Menelik II. The word Menelik should be Abna Hakim. That was the name of Menelik I, Abna Hakim. In 1924, when my father assigned there, I was 6 years old, being born in 1918. We were assigned to Brazil in an economic position. It was not diplomatic, it was in the office of the Consul General. Ethiopia had no Consul General officially with Ethiopia, but since Brazil had gotten its coffee from Ethiopia, Ethiopia had a relationship, a commercial relationship, and they charged the affairs. That was the official title of my father. The charge the affairs had to be there. Assigned there, in 1924, the revolution came. Selassie and Abuna Johannes poisoned Zadito, the daughter of Menelik II, whom Menelik had left, to watch and raise up her son, his grandson, to turn over the government to him at age, when he became of legal age of Ethiopia. By that time, the overthrow, sponsored by Selassie and Abuna Johannes, my father could not go back to Ethiopia because it was no sense going to Ethiopia just to die at the hand of Selassie and Abuna Johannes. The Abuna is the head of the church, by the way, and the emperor is bound to protect the church. The church, Ethiopia had then a Christian government. Down through the years, Ethiopia had various different governments, and each government, the religion of the emperor became the religion of the government. And in this case, the religion of Menelik, the ancient Menelik, before him, the first Menelik, had made the country a Hebrew country. It's supposed to have been a sexual relationship between Makeda, which they call the Queen of Sheba, or actually she was the Queen of Aksum, which people call Ethiopia, and the Empress of Sheba. She had conquered Sheba, thus making her the Empress of the areas that she conquered, but the Queen of the land from whence she did the conquering. We need to keep the history straight. She, by getting this son, changed the religion of the country by, at that time, the Ethiopians worshipped the god Amun-Ra, the same god that was worshipped in Egypt, that was worshipped in Sudan, that was worshipped in Meroe, that also was worshipped in Ethiopia. That god was equally worshipped in Penwet. Penwet today is called Uganda, Kenya, Somalia, and parts of northern Tanzania. It was the largest empire of Africa in ancient days. Well, Amun-Ra, if the earthly part of God Ra. Ra was the God of all God and the greatest God, and was only depicted as a sun disk. You will notice that Amun-Ra is depicted as symbolically as a goat with the horn, a ram with the disc between the horn and the rest of a human body. And that was Amun-Ra, a representative of Ra. Since no man could have seen God, and we still say, no man sees God and live. No man sees the sun and live. If you could see the sun, the rays would blast your brains out and you die. So you could hardly look at an eclipse without looking at it as some diversionary measure. Now, these are the background that is very important. My father couldn't go back. I went from Brazil to Cuba trying to get home, because if my mother was the one that was born, my father was born in Puerto Rico, it would be easy for her to come. But in those days, the immigration law said a woman, an American woman, she was born in Puerto Rico, therefore had right to American citizen, could not bring in her husband without problem. But a man could have done it. So it was difficult for my mother to get back to Puerto Rico. And finally she did after 2 years in Cuba. I then was brought up in the Virgin Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, mainly St. Croix and Puerto Rico, because my father practiced law. My mother's family, he joined up with my mother's family, were in the field of largely medicine and law. And it's that way I lived between the two islands, and on occasion going to St. Thomas, because my mother had an uncle there in St. Thomas, Marcus Cruz, who was the director of police. So back and forth those islands I grew. I was trying to tell you, I had the privilege then of being brought up as an African boy in the Caribbean, which is called in the West Indies, and in the Spanish language and the English language, and a good extent to the Danish language. So that was the quote-unquote multicultural thing they're talking about these days. But I did not take on about myself Latino. What the hell does it mean? It means a person who reads Latin, or come from a country where there's Latin. Well, Latin is in the English language too, and is in many other Western language you find a big amount of Latin as well as a big amount of Greek. But I would not take on any divisionary name to try to separate me from the African people. And thus when I came to New York City and had a little time living with my mother's uncle, Caspar Hustain, and many of you who know the number system know that Caspar and Alex Pompey brought the number system, the 3 figures, from Cuba here. So I got very royal people, the number runners, the gangsters, and so forth. Like you said, many people say, my ancestors were kings and queens. I never had that privilege. My ancestors were plain old country folks. So when you ask me, am I African? Yes. Am I proud? Yes. What was your ancestors? The farmers, the people who cut the cane, the people who do pick the cotton and all kind of things like that. And I don't know of one damn royal member in my family, and if I know him, I'm going to shoot him. Take him out the grave, I'll shoot him for being so bad to the African people. So don't tell me about my ancestors who were kings and queens. That's yours. So it's a bad thing. I mean, I probably would never meet you, and we would never have a good time. But all right. So don't see when every time I hear you, you got an ancestor who was king or queen, one who was a Blackfoot or Greenfoot or no-foot Indian, some kind of Indian. You know what I mean? Every one of you got coming with all them Irish Scots of it, and you look black like me. And I said, where did you get that all that? Did the first look in the mirror lately? So you understand, we got to get this thing straight before we start talking about anything else. So with this background, this you have yours truly right here. But I am proud with all of that. I'm proud because the source from whence I came, I know I didn't come from the Mediterranean. I went down to the Mediterranean. I come from the soul of Africa, dead center. I came from, just like I came from my mother's heaven. You understand? Right in that womb, down that fallopian tube. Like I always say in my little book, heaven is between a black woman's leg, right down that tube. See, brothers, you've been to heaven, some of you brothers. Some of you have never been to heaven. But try one. A black woman may be good for your health. Try one. No, some of you brothers going to these Ivy school have never had a black woman. And that's why you're so stupid. Until you get a black woman, you will never be right. Okay. So, it came, I know that my civilization came from the place where the black woman is. That's it. The ancient Egyptians said, when you die, we don't talk about the damn nonsense about going back to dirt. Man, come from no dirt. You said you go back to the twat of Osiris, of Isis. when you die, you go back spiritually, back from where you came, through the 12 outsides, back in the mother. I had proof of that. About 10, 15 years ago, my first grandchild was killed playing a college game. They won the inter-island competition. They were coming back from Frederiksted, where the game was, back to Christiansted in this little Japanese car. A drunk who was license been taken away umpteen time, in a station wagon, drunk as what, sideswiped the car and killed the whole team. My grandson, Gino, first grandchild, was one of those killed in that accident. He died the next day. While there at the funeral, my daughter, his mother, and some of my children with me, standing at the last time to look at the casket. My daughter, which had not been reacting much, I was looking at her and I said, Ellie, you feel good? And she said, yes. But when they got ready to close the casket, she bent and screamed and squeezed her stomach and said, Gino, you're hurting me. She had gone back to the day when she gave birth to him. They make me further understand the woman a little more. You can never, brothers, understand a sister because you can never have that experience. You can't even have experience of a cramp in the menstrual period. You will never know. You can empathize. Even a doctor, physician, a gynecologist who's a male, he can empathize, but he'll never know. She went back to birth. And there I understand. I understand. And my mother was a midwife, and I've been many times and cases with her. And I thought I knew about childbearing. I didn't know a thing, my daughter. And then when we got back, I didn't say anything to her because she go to the funeral, we went to the cemetery, buried my grandson, and we went home. And she was just jolly, serving the people and everything, and I called her on the side. I said, Eleanor, what happened in that church? She said, Daddy, I gave birth to Gino. I said, don't talk stupidness, girl. I said, your son died 19 years old or 20 years old. She said, Daddy, I felt like I was giving birth that day in the labor room. I said, but the labor room was our house. In the house you give birth, I was right there. She said, Daddy, you can't understand. She was right. I couldn't understand. She was giving birth that day. She said, Daddy, I felt the birth pain. And after a while, I sit down and I said, you know, she must be right. Because I would never know. But that's why they said, the birth pain she felt is the birth pain I felt when I went to the Sudan. When I took with 11 brothers, Dr. Lewis and others, Brother Dix and others, just this summer in July, when we left Khartoum and we drove 5 hours non-stop into the desert, dead into the desert, no trees, no nothing. And we stopped at a place called Naga. And in Naga, there is a queen. There was a queen who made Hatshepsut look like a little play girl. And she saw there in many scenes holding her enemies, all kings, smashing them, and they present her as a lioness. That was enough. But we went 2 hours more further into the desert to the complex, the Meroitic complex, where the administration and everything of that government was used to be, and see the ruins. That wasn't enough. We went another hour and a half further into the desert at the pyramids of Meroe. 7 hours, way in the desert, no track, No roads. We had to, because when you run over the road within an hour, the tracks are covered up. So each time you go, you have to know by sights on the mountain. And we got to drive until you could see. Sometimes you're off this way, up 2 or 3 miles, you got to diddle-daddle and try to figure out things. Or you may see a brother riding a camel, or some kids riding a camel, and then you can ask them, where would such and such a thing? Those little kids know these places. Or where the well is, the one well where you would find. Yes, you get the feelings. Now you get the feelings of being your mother womb again. You're in no place. You got to guess where you are. And then you could get the feelings of how the ancient brothers felt when they were in this area doing the things they did. Because you start to see the mirages. Way up ahead of you look like a lake. And you know there's water there. You're glad you got your water. You're in an air-conditioned vehicle, but the water is hot. Because outside it's 140 degrees Fahrenheit. And once in a while you see what appears to be a house. It is a house, but there is no top. There's goat skin, just layout of goat skin hanging and poles, because it hasn't rained there in 10,000 years. The only water that anybody knows, they must go to the Nile, or they must dig about a mile down to find water, and there's a little well with leather rope made from the skin of the goat, pulled by the camel, goes off and come back, and a little bucket this small. Don't bring up a gallon of water each time. That's where they get the source of the water for the animal and for the human being. Those brothers and sisters know where to live. They know there is no thing in that area as a court, as a police department, as any of these social things that we have. But yet these are the people who built what all we have been seeing and more. We didn't get to Napata because I had been to Napata. I knew where to go. I've been there a number of times. But we had to go to these places. We could not pretend like the Masons pretend by taking a blanket, plugging it in the wall, and walking in it instead of walking in the hot sun, hot sand. No, that's nonsense. What a European do. No, we went there and walked in hot sun. You had to walk in the hot sun. When you came out, it was hot sun. You know it. You could literally see the heat coming up out the earth. And then when we went to the pyramids of Meroe, yes, the pyramids of Egypt are large. The largest in Meroe is no larger than the third-sized pyramid at Giza, the one of Menkaure. But they are much more beautiful. Much more beautiful. Then you realize the cluster, the manner in which the cluster, you understand why it is from here in the south and further south, at the beginning of the Nile, that the ancient Africans started what became the origin of high culture. Because just nature itself had given him a thing to work with. By nightfall, when we left there and went to the city of Shindi, you may call it Tshindi, T-S-H-I-N-D-I. Tshindi is a pretty big place. It's got about 200,000 living inhabitants. To spend the night, we didn't because of some conditions in Khartoum, and we had to get back to catch our flight, which was to leave 6 o'clock at night. Instead, there was an error, it left 6 o'clock in the morning. But it was there that I had carried the brothers. There's certain other things that goes with it I can't tell you. From there we went to other places and looked and examined some of the other ancient things. But brothers saw where the Africans had his experience I listened to brothers marveling about Sirius, about the Dogon, as if Sirius was only sighted in West Africa among the Dogons. The ancient Africans and Nile call it the Dog Star and show it as two upside-down pyramids. One pyramid going that way, intersected by another pyramid upside down, thus causing a 6-point star, which the Jews adopted and called the Star of David. It is that experience, and others will go further south when Hunefa said, "We came from the beginning of the Nile, where God happy dwells at the foothill of the mountain of the moon." There's certain things you will see me repeat constantly in my books, repeat constantly in my lectures, because they're the fundamentals of our life. I will always talk about the womb of the black woman in every lecture. I cannot avoid it because every lecture it is there. The basis and foundation for it is in every lecture. And any man who lectures and cannot speak and do not speak about the source of his origin, got to be jiving. It is because he's still European-minded. He's still, you must give praise to the source from whence you come. Thus, every lecture I give, I must give praises to, not to Allah, not to Jesus, not to Jehovah, but to the black woman that gave birth to me. Allah, Jesus, Jehovah, all those are beliefs. My mother is not a belief. That's a reality. I was born from a woman. If you doubt it, I'll take you to any hospital labor room and show me what's giving birth. Show me Allah giving birth. Show me Jehovah giving birth. Show me Jesus giving birth. I'll show you a woman.
Every time.
All right then. There is no guess for that. All the other things are theories. But she is not a theory, she's a fact. Even a female cat giving birth is a fact. You won't see no Tom cat. You may see Tom cat trying to give birth. And all he gonna cut up with is a piece of doo-doo. That's all he gonna come down. All right, now we got to separate the myth and the fiction from the reality. But we don't want, and the reason the brother Wright believe and act this way is because the European couldn't deal with it. He couldn't deal with Mary being the mother of his God. So he had to remove her at the Nicene Conference. He had to belittle her, even though he had preached, Holy Mary, Mother of God, blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. He had to remove her. Said that, and still leave the praise. This is the thing with the cracker. This sucker is bad. He will lie to himself, leave the thing to you to see, and then lie. And then say, yeah, you're the mother of God. Listen to this shit here. She's the mother of God. But she can't go in the church of her son to preach, to say something about him. And then she got her son with no man. What's wrong with sex? See, the difference with me in Egypt, all of Africa, is that I show sex to be God. They show you God men with a constant erection, such a erection that at the end it get a little curve. Gone out so long that you have to put some strength to it. At the end you have to put a curve so it can stand there without falling. In the next scene in Egypt, in the chapel in Abydos, God Osiris, flat on his back with erection. False erection there is. And in the next scene, you see Isis receiving the sperm from this penis to get the immaculately
See, child. Here in the Western world, there's an angel that come and put the baby in Mary, but no penis. But the angel got a man name. There ain't no female angel ever mentioned. Now, how the hell did the sperm get in Mary? Something had to put it in there. It went by remote osmosis. Even if it's an angel, a bird, or anything, at least the ancient Egyptians deal with, but they show the penis, and the bird sitting on the penis and has a vagina on the penis where the sperm is going to enter. But we can't deal with that. We can't even deal with that. I remember one time my daughter was going like this. I said, Cola, what's wrong with you? Daddy, I got pains, I got cramp. I said, well, why are you doing like that? She said, well, Kwame's here, and I want him to know. I said, if Kwame knew, would you still have the cramp? He doesn't know, but you got cramps. If he know you're going to have cramps, yeah, I got going to have cramps. Then let Kwame know you got cramps. And if he asks you why, he said, look, I got my period. This is a biological fact that's going to happen for a number of years yet. And if you don't know, let me tell you. See, my mother tells me, boy, let me tell you. There's certain times of the month I got my period. That time they had no such thing called napkin. It was a towel. She said, this here is menstruation. You don't mess with a woman with this when she has this. You understand, boy? Yes, mama. See, I don't have no problem. I ain't raping nobody because she had done tell me. She told me, you rape any woman, I'm going to kill you myself. We're going to tell you how to talk to women. So you don't have to rape nobody. You're going to know how to get some yourself. On your own initiative. I'm going to talk to you. Get your father tells you. I can talk to you. I tell you some of the things that women do when you know you're hitting strong. Some of the reactions. See, so then you're going to rape somebody. You know if you don't get none, go on someplace else. You ain't got to rape because you're wasting time now. You understand? So mama tell me all the things to expect some of the things that women going to do that says no. Don't waste time because it's going to be no. And she tell you, well, I got to think it over. Stick boy, you got a chance. That's because we got to start getting down to the level of reality. We're too academic. You see? So when we go there, you see, when these brothers go to Egypt, they don't talk to the old folks. They only want the university, and they only want the library and the museums. But when I go to Nubia, or anything like that, I sit there, when you know all that with me, I'm sitting with this old man, could barely walk, and he's telling me, yes, you can't find it in any book, but he's telling me a history. It isn't in the book, but it's the traditional way of passing down information. The way it was passed down at the Grand Lodge of Luxor, the way it was passed down in Meroe, certain things written we saw on the wall, but there's certain things missing, and we know that it had to be, it couldn't be just that, something is missing. Some people were given information. Thus, when you came, you saw some of the information, but you couldn't do nothing because you had to meet certain people to get the other part that matched the jigsaw puzzle. And it is so that this went back to the Tuat, all the way in what is today Central East Africa. The same people that you saw in the newspaper, they're the descendants of those people that started it all, the Twa and the Hutu. You may look at them badly or whatever, but they have gone all over Africa thousands of years before we, the giants, showed up. You see them in the southern tip of Africa as Grimaldi. And you see the drawings in the Museum of Natural History right up the street in 79th Street 79 to 81st Street and Central Park West, especially in a section called the Man of Africa. You see these people in the southern tip of Africa today. They are disrespected by Africans and Europeans alike. The Europeans call them Bushmen and Hottentot, and the stupid Africans call them the same thing, instead of calling them by their name, Khoi Khoi and Kalahari. The same people who went up the west coast of Africa, across the area we now call the Straits of Gibraltar, up there and wind up all the way up even into Austria. Those same people who went the opposite side, they went northeast, following the riverbed, calling themselves Sybenetos, Sybenetos. You see one when you go in the museum in Cairo. As you enter to the right-hand side, you see the top of a coffin, the lid of a coffin with a sculpture of a Sybeneto. Small people, a people who once even became kings of Egypt because they thought they were specially handed down, and they were from the god, the deity, him or herself. And that's where we are to find the one. There, for the first time, the oldest known rock joints dealing with the Ankh were found in this area. We know that they got the oldest people because we got Denknesh, the Ethiopian woman, unearthed, even older than Zinzanthropus boise. She is 3.2 million years old, and somebody's talking some nonsense for Adam and Eve. And then the faggots have now changed that to Adam and Steve. All the time we look at it, nature reveals to us the woman as our progenitor. When we thought we had the catch and brothers were feeling good with Zinzanthropus boise, let's break that down. Zen-Jan, Black Coast. That was the Persian language called Africa, East Africa, the Black Coast, or the Coast of the Black. Anthropoid, Anthropus, Boise, the Englishman who put up the money to do this study. $1.7 million years old, again in Central East Africa. Why there? The hottest place on earth. Why? Because it's out of the sun, out of heat, generates life. I never look or never wonder about the oldest man in Sweden or in the North Pole. Cold doesn't generate life. Heat generates life. And so while you looking for Pond's cream and skin lightener, I'm looking for darkening and pomade. I like a sister who gets dark lipstick, especially one who got lips like mine, who are a little thicker, because when these lips collide, it vibrates. You ever heard a bottle of champagne being opened? when you remove those two lips, God, it's like a vacuum. This joint. Now, you said that I don't have thick lips. I'm not going to blame you. It's no fault of yours. Because when it gets close to mine, it will make up the difference. You see, our history is so great. Some people say, why you always make jokes? I said, because I feel good talking about my history. I feel so, I swell up inside. Some people say, why do you go on? You don't stop. What the hell? I want to stop dealing with African history. I only 3 hours of sleep. That's good enough. Because I got to get back to this thing. If you get into it, you get into the digging and all those kind of things, you don't want to stop because nobody wants to stop eating honey. Nobody wants to stop loving. You stop because you can't go no more. But you don't want to stop. You understand what it is? When stopping time comes, you say, you know you're going to stop. You say, God, I wish I could go, but I got to stop. I got to go. you know the feeling. Well, you get that feeling reading about yourself. You get that feeling finding out more about yourself. When you find a new piece of rock with some carving or some anything, and here comes it. And people say, well, it's 12 o'clock midnight. You say, well, what the hell that got to do with me? See, my wife said, but you don't go to sleep. What am I going to sleep for? I mean, she got good stuff, but I mean, but this stuff is even better because it's talking about the good stuff she got. You get what I mean? All right. So it is being involved with this, being involved, and when you find that everything points to here. Hunefer said it best. He said, the priest, high priest Hunefer, we came from the beginning of the Nile, where God happy dwells, at the foothills of the mountain of the moon. He was talking about that he and all the other Egyptians where we come from. So when all these crackers start talking about Egypt is a white land and all that, I won't pay no mind to those suckers. Because I had done read where Hunefer said where we come from. I have seen the papyri, not in Egypt. I've seen them in London, in the museum in London. There are a lot of things you can't find in Egypt no more. You got to go to London, you got to go to Habsburg, and you got to go to Chicago, you got to go all over in Crackersville. For him to tell me, he stole my mama and grandmama and great-grand whatever all the way back then, telling me about stealing, that I am a thief. Everywhere I go, he put graffiti everywhere, put his goddamn name all over my statues, and then come back and tell me that they're him with all the big thick lips and the big nose. Especially when you go to Abu Simbel and you see Ramesses. That's right. If you had any doubt who he was, you can't leave in doubt. Otherwise you need double thick lenses. But that's why. So when we talk about Egypt, yes, be proud. Yes, raise a noise. But remember, it didn't start there. That is the zenith. When the young sister is born that day, and the doctor or the midwife said, you have a beautiful young daughter. You don't go to marry her that day. In any culture, they'll put you to jail, they'll kill you. It is years later, that event, that day, that nice little young girl, much later, mushrooms into that beautiful human specimen of a black woman, ready for a black mate, a black man. And they say a black male. There's a difference between a black man and a black male. A male makes with his woman a baby. A man takes care of it. Brothers, there's a big difference. Any jackass could be a father. And most jackasses are fathers. But it takes a man to be a real father. And a piece of paper from City Hall ain't got nothing to do with you being a father. Right. See, Africans don't have illegitimate children. All children, there's no such thing as a child born from a law book. Even if they test tube, you got to get a sperm and the ovum from somewhere. A man and a woman. And there's no half sisters and half brothers. Do you see half of my brother coming down the street? Hi, half sister. All them European nonsense. And we all loaded with them. And we swear by them and we judge each other by this goddamn nonsense. That's why when the Africans die, the African custom says that child is as much a member of the family as that child. Even that's that mother and that's the other mother, but that's the same man they relate to. Therefore, all children, married mother or not, share the pot. You share the same penis that helped to make you. Therefore, you share the same pot. Equally. We got to get these terms. We got to get these backgrounds. We got to put them into practicability. We got to live the life. That's the thing. We don't want to live the life. We want to speak about it, sing about it, poetry about it, but living the life. What is it if I came here with a Rolls Royce, or a Duesenberg, with a 130,000 bulletproof Mercedes Benz, with a chauffeur telling you about being black? You gonna ask me, do you need all that shit to drive around with? Couldn't you find a car, bulletproof car, Chevrolet? And take some of that money and help some of the poor within our group at least? Do you need to go around impressing me? I'm not impressed by all that goddamn nonsense. You're just making yourself look an ass to me. Knowing that we're suffering. And you're taking 100,000, giving some crackers in Germany to impress me. And you're going to get killed. Anybody really want to kill, you're going to kill you anyhow. You could get all the bulletproof, whatever you want. If they want to kill you, see how easy it was to fly in the president in window the other day? It's a pity he wasn't in the house there. It makes no difference. One cracker dead is another one cracker dead. I remember I was in Live Van Blaine's steakhouse with a guy named John Kennedy. And I was there I was getting pork chop and my favorite food, collard green, and some candy, sweet, and I had a little, what that kind of thing they call it, apple sauce to tickle it. And those days I used to have corn pone. I mean, just plain old white food. And so, I was the sister, I saw her come with my food and I waiting for her to come out of the kitchen and the food was coming and my tongue was just watering and oh man, my lips were wet. I could taste the food before I get it. And all of a sudden the sister, ah! And my pork chop up in the air. I fell with the chops on the floor. And she hollered, they killed our president. And I said, who killed Krumah? She said, no, who's Krumah? She said, they just killed President Kennedy. I said, oh shit. I thought somebody had killed Krumah. You see, a lot of you would understand. Why do I feel this way? Because that's why I went home. To reunite at home. Any place in Africa is home. Any place I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, I'm home. Anytime I'm in Tougaloo, Mississippi, I'm home. Anytime I'm in San Juan, Puerto Rico, Charlotte, Amalia, St. Thomas, Georgetown, Barbados, you name it, I'm home. As long as the African people there. So that if you ask me, what are you? I am anything that you call African people. If you feel that we are dirt, I'm dirt. Because I know from whence we came. Two places. Physically on the earth center, Central East Africa. Biologically, from the womb of the black woman, heaven itself. so I could end. I end because I end in joy. I am the tallest man on the face of the earth. I walk with my mind on cloud 9 because I realize I was privileged to be born from a black vagina. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ben.
What's that, brothers and sisters? I'd like to thank everybody that came out last night and made it a success. Like I said last night, we over $20,000 inside the building fund, and the total's going to go up as more members will bring in more money. One of the things people asked me about, even though Dr. Ben didn't come, when we played the tape, they thought it was a tape by Dr. Ben that we was playing over some jazz music. Now I'm going to show Dr. Ben, and me and Nubia don't even know if this was legit or not, but it wasn't a tape, it was an album that he made, or somebody made, in 1979, Christianity, African Roots by Dr. Ben. And you know about this, Dr. Ben?
I think that's what Brother Harris, Clarence Harris in Detroit. I think so.
That's what it is in Detroit. And stuff. And what I'm going to do, if it's all right, is I'm going to make copies of this and use the excess money for this just for the building fund. Okay. Another thing that we played last night that I got a hold of was the original The Wisdom of Malcolm X, a 3-album collection back in the 60s. I'm going to make copies of that so people wind up next week, they can get copies of this. Some rare albums I was given, the brother gave me about 1,000 albums, Brother George. And I went through the albums, and I brought some of the rare ones that was down there. I brought them to the dance last night. So I don't want to take up no more time. I'd just like to thank everybody that came. And for the members, next Sunday at 2 o'clock, we have a meeting here. If anybody wants to come sit on our meeting, you feel free to come at 2 o'clock. We'll be right upstairs. Thank you very much.
Sisters and brothers, Dr. Ben, he has told you, and you can see, he's very tired. But because of the way he is, he's just going to take a couple of questions. So please make your questions very short and to the point. So, questions? Okay, once the brother's coming up, I'll ask one question. Brother, Dr. Ben, would you kindly explain to us since this is called Christmas time, the virgin birth and immaculate conception?
Number one, Jesus wasn't born in the month of December. If we are talking about either the spiritual or the material Jesus, let's say that we accept there was a Jesus. Jesus was born on August the 27th based upon early Christian documents. The Christians removed the day of the birth of Jesus to December 25th to counteract what they call the heathen and the pagan ceremony of the celebration of the winter solstice, the longest day of the year. And that's what they deal with, the son of the sun. Up to now, all pharaohs were called S-O-S. You see in the name, son, S-O-N of the S-U-N. And the sun was considered the direct representation of God. You couldn't see God. You can't see the sun. You could see the rays. And that's why the ancients make the sun symbolic of God. Because no one could see it. No one could know if God is a female, a male, or what. So the son of the sun. They moved the day to do that, so that so many Christians were still celebrating the solstice, that they said, well, all right, no, it will be no exception. Nobody will know who you're celebrating, so they moved the birthday of Jesus, Mary, the day that Mary delivered him, to that day. That was expanded when the Greeks got it. If you remember that the worship of Aset or Isis was carried to Greece, and it became the Herculaneum worship of Isis. The Herculaneum. In other words, they were worshiping Isis just as the first Christians worshiped Mary. They worshiped the birth of the little boy in the manger. Huh? They came to see the byproduct that Mary had produced. They didn't come to see Joseph. His action had finished 10 months before. But she was there lying down. All you mothers, now, they ain't got a single mother in here can't deal with this day. You could think back. You could think back when Mary gave birth to the boy. You know the condition of Mary is. I could only think about it. You feel it. You know when you had your first child. I spoke one time to a Mother's Day in Reverend Pope Church on Mother's Day. And one sister said, I heard her before I got there, what he going to talk about? He ain't no mother. But I know I could get them. I know them sister were going to cry. One sister, that's tough. And I say, now, I know you're all Christian, but I'm going to ask you mothers, whether you got daughters or sons, just think on that day when that little boy, that little girl came out. I know you were glad. You weren't even thinking of nothing. All the pain left you when you see that hump, a lump, a black thing in your, because I'm a black woman, in your hand. Even if you hate the bastard who was the father. That moment, all your hate left you, all you could see is joy. I could see your head bowing. You know I'm telling the truth. Amen. Because, like they say, that pain was gone so fast I don't remember I had it. That's what my mom told me, that's why I know. See, I never had it, so I've talked about hearsay. See, I've been there and see my little child born that day. As a matter of fact, I took it in my hand before she did. My mother pulled out the little child, turned it over to me. Both of us, we cut the navel string, put the little thing there, stick back that little navel, put a little piece of plaster in there, and I washed them. We give it a little wipe off, and the stupid little thing start crying, like that. My mama say, you're supposed to cry. If you don't cry, you go hip into his behind, and you want to get no blows, all like that. And then I give the child to my woman. And all I know she was keeping it unnecessarily. She just hold it. I said, no, you're going to crush my child. No, don't push that. But you know, Mary was there. And Mary had that child like anybody else have a child. You don't have to feel, I don't want the sisters now. You don't have to feel bad because your child was immaculately conceived the same way Mary was. You know why Mary's child was immaculately conceived? She didn't screw with nobody else when she got pregnant. That month she knew who was the father. She had not touched another man but that one man. If she was screwing with Tom, Dick, and Harry, she wouldn't have known. She would not have had an immaculate conception. But because she would have screwing with one man and putting it down to rock bottom language, she knew that was the sucker. He could say all he wants, he knows Joseph was the sucker that made her pregnant. And she could brag when she looked at that child, that's an immaculately conceived child. I know, you, the guy, because you're the only one I give it to. You understand? That's an immaculate conception. It ain't got nothing to do with getting pregnant and you still get your hymen.
Share up here, knowing that good things don't last forever, eventually I assume that one day you will have to go home, Dr. Ben. But I'm curious about something.
Me to my house?
I'm curious about something. I had the good fortune of learning some of my first words about our history from you.
That's right.
And from that day to this, I've seen many imposters and many people who have come and waved the flag of blackness. And I'm curious if you have any advice for the people that are yet to come on some technique for identifying those who are imposters waving the flag of blackness.
My brother, you see two types of flowers each day. One made from cellophane paper and other such material. Look just as pretty. One will wither away and die after its brilliance because it was made to wither away and die. It is the nature of life. The other one will remain forever because it was made from paper and plastic, but it loses its shine, its glow. You see, they too will wither away. Your presence will cause them to wither in the face of truth. And truth has a funny way of acting. Truth will make you kill yourself. You can only lie but so long. You know, one of the reasons I tell a sister every word I'm going to tell you is truth, because I don't have no time correcting lies. You see, if you tell a lie, it haunts you because every day you're trying to correct the damn thing.
That's right.
So if I come to you and I love you and I wanted a little action, I said, baby, I'm married. I got children, grandchildren and great-grandchildren, but I still like you. I said, no, you're going to find it difficult to pass this hurdle. But when you get your mind straight, you'll understand what you're going to miss. Now, if you come in, you know, and bless me with the good tidings, I ain't got nothing to worry. I don't have to lie to you and tell you what. I don't have a phone with the neighbor to take my phone. You see, my wife got triple cancer, and the reason I can't do no action is because the cancer is coming through her jawbone. You know what I mean? And then tomorrow you say, how was your wife? I said, oh, she's singing for the Noble Choir. You get what I'm talking about. Are you married? Oh, something like that, but we are in a state of a divorce. But how come she living in the house? Well, you know, I promised her great-grandfather that I'll take care of her regardless. You get what I mean? The lies start coming up. So, don't worry, brother. Those brothers and sisters are going to fall on their own. Just keep steady, and they got to come in. You can't lie every day.
That's right.
First of all, I'd just like to announce myself. My name is Abraham. I'm from the motherland, is Ethiopia. It's really great to be here and to listen his lecture. And I heard about him, his books, and have a few books. What I'd like to ask you is, when you explain about Queen Sheba, she's the queen of queens. Is she Queen Sheba? She crossed into the Mediterranean and she had a baby from King Solomon, or just she has a baby from her selected army?
Very good question. I can tell from the question you're an Ethiopian.
Excuse me. Because my grandfather, he was a big priest. He was 84 when he died. He was sick Wednesday. He said, I'll die tomorrow, which is he did. He was telling me about the Bible and the Quran, all about Queen Sheba. That's why I was, to clear the question. Thank you.
Very good. According to Ethiopian history, and we must go to the Kebra for that history, the history of the kings, the history of the chronicles. There was no proof that she got a child for Solomon. She got a child for Akbar, the commander-in-chief of the army. And she gave it to Solomon. He was so glad to get a little piece and to have his name associated with her, because at that time she was the most powerful monarch in the world. And his name associating with her, plus to say he had a piece of this good African thing. It built his ego. Her bodyguard, the little army that carried her up there, was bigger than his whole army. The wealth that she had, he was on welfare. She was supporting his little government, all the loans he was getting from her. So for her to lie in bed with him was an honor for him. For her, she was playing to see, let me see what I could get from this sucker. So she tell him, look, when she leaving, I'm pregnant for you. How the hell she knows? 1 week? Even if she was pregnant, she would know in 1 week. But she said, I'm going home, I'm pregnant. He said, well, okay, when the baby come and it come 12 years old, time for bar mitzvah to get confirmed, send it back and show this ring. So she sent back the boy. When the boy went there, he loaded down the boy with everything Israel had. Go back. And when you get old again, come. But when he came with all that, she said, what? Boy, I'm stepping down from being the queen, and we're changing the religion to the Hebrew faith in honor of your daddy. That's all we know about it. But there's no evidence at all in the Kebra Negats that Solomon was the child's father.
Good afternoon, Elder. I had the privilege of hearing you just a few days ago, 14 years ago, when you was at Rutgers. And you not only shook me up, but shook others up that was there at that particular time 14 years ago. And I just basically want to make a tribute to you. I thank the ancestors for you. And every time I hear you, I just get an enjoyment and it's an enlightenment. And to all the brothers and sisters here, we ought to revere our elders, because right now they're under heavy criticism and attack right now. And some of it is rubbish. Elder showed you the book earlier by this brother named by Amin Yashir Muhammad. And I think it's like the Star magazine, it's a bunch of nonsense. And we need to just basically just wrap our arms around our elders and elders and let them know that we love them. Elder, basically I wanted to know about Bilal Ibn Rabin. Did he come out of a Coptic church, or where exactly did he come from before he went up through the desert to Arabia?
I think you are talking about Hatzat Kubat ibn Rabin.
Right. Yes, sir.
That was the Ethiopian, which by pet name the Arabs call him Bilal. He left Ethiopia as ambassador to Arabia, to the city of Mecca at the time. There was a conflict between Ethiopia and Arabia, and he was held in ransom by the Arabian state. At the same time when the insurrection took place by Muhammad ibn Abdullah, Umar, the quote-unquote the great, and it was Bilal, Umar, and Abu Bakr, Bilal was part of the insurrection because it was against the interests of the same people that they were fighting, and they became a foursome. They asked, because Bilal was the best trained, yes, he came out of the Coptic church. Because he was the best trained, he was a lawyer. And people think that when you're a slave, all you do is dig in ditches. You got slaves who are doctors, medical doctors, slaves who are pediatricians, nurses. You do different things, just were owned by somebody else. He was the only one among them could be considered an intellectual. He was the only one among them that read to the extent that he did. Muhammad did not read anything, could not read his name. If he saw it big as his house, the letters, he couldn't read his name. And that's historic data. So then it was Hassan Kubar who was directing the matter of state. As a matter of fact, Muhammad himself with others offered him to be the spiritual leader. He said no. When Muhammad died, they offered him again. When each of them died, Abu Bakr and all of them, he outlived every one of them. Died 104 to 105 years old. And each time they would ask him, but he took one position, the head of government. He was in charge of delegates, the head of the delegation. That means like saying the prime minister. Muhammad was only a spiritual leader. And that man set out the course of Islam. As a matter of fact, at one time, after Muhammad had passed away, Umar the Great, they were arguing with this Christian man from, I forget where it came from, and the man made a derogatory remark about his color. And Umar the Great said to all of them around, including the followers, you see this man? In Islam, first comes Allah. Second comes Prophet Muhammad. And third comes Bilal. That Bilal is Islam. And that's the way it is.
How are you, Dr. Ben? I'm very happy for you being here, and I'd just like to, like everybody, just to, clap your hands and just say thank you. My name is Shane Black, and my first question was that you spoke, you made some comments regarding the menstrual cycle of women, and I want to know, was there ever a time in the African culture when women didn't have a menstrual cycle?
Not that I know of. I know that there's some people are saying that because of the diet of women, that's why they have a menstrual period. But from the time of, in the going back, and we saw in the Grimaldi writings, we saw, as a matter of fact, any of you who've been with me this summer in Kamumbo, in the temple of the double temple, I showed you the sperm coming from a man's penis on that rock. Sometimes I remember to show something. But way back, the Grimaldi show a woman with a menstrual string on. And that's going 45,000 years ago. The Grimaldi rock joint goes back 45,000 years ago. And they showed a woman in isolation. She was isolated with this special string away from the people. It's just like in any African village. Like when we go to Dabud, I remember I used to carry the people around the village. I stopped because some of the brothers want to take pictures. And some brothers broke away from the group and went in the house of blood, walked right in. They asked nobody to come in, and the women there were having the menstrual period, and they almost killed him. So I stopped carrying people there. We only go in an isolated area. But there's no record. Well, the human body will have to change. You mean to tell me that those parts that create the menstrual period just grew up the other day? And there's nothing wrong with it. I think the person who's saying so feel ashamed of it is the greatest thing could ever happen to the woman. If she don't have it, you don't get born.
Okay, and my second question would be is that you referred to different religions in the beginning, and you said that any religion that didn't give praise to the black woman basically it's not a comparable religion
for me,
for you, to any of the African religions. And I just want to know, could you name a few for us and tell us something about those religions?
Judaism, Christianity, and Islam have no goddess. Not one of them proclaims a goddess and worship her. Anything I subscribe to the religions of Egypt, because for every god there's a goddess. For every god there's a goddess. I cannot see paying reverence to a man and not a woman. I am the product of two people, a man and a woman. And if I'm going to praise the man, I must praise the woman. But then when I look, I wasn't conscious that I know of in a state of consciousness to know the day I was born. Obviously that day I was in the consciousness of a child that age. But as I grew and start to go with my mother, who was a midwife, and saw childbirth. I see childbirth all kind of ways. Foot coming first, coming sideways, all kind of things. My mother had to put her hand inside and turn the baby around. All kind of things like that. I saw mothers die giving birth to baby. And I say, if a woman is not to be worshipped, I can't see why. I don't see the man going through the contortion the woman going through. The man's problem with a baby is discharging. That's the hardest time he got. And that ain't looking as hard to me. That's his biggest problem, was to get that thing out. And he wasn't feeling no pain. But when I look at what happened, they said, it's a common statement, when a woman gives birth, there's 1 foot in the grave and 1 foot out. I suggest that every man, the first thing, before a man goes with a woman, before he gets hot and decides to go with a woman, that he shouldn't be forced to see a baby born, because that's what he may cause. And he must know what it is, what is going to be the reaction of what he's doing, what he is subjecting this woman to. We need that in our education. And there'll be less brothers leaving babies, there'll be less brothers beating up women, and everything like that. And I say that any religion that doesn't worship a woman cannot be a religion of mine. Thank you.
Greetings, Dr. Ben. What opportunities are there for one to travel with you to Egypt in the future? And if so, how can I find out about those opportunities in the future after today?
Well, as you know, I used to have always an assistant with me. The last assistant I had has left on his own, and what I'm doing is to conducting the trip as I did before alone. However, the possibilities are going to exist, but I have already asked Brother Dix if he's willing to accompany me. I've always selected a young man. I never selected an old man, so I'm going to see if an old man got more loyalty than a young man. So, but as for general, we used to have, but for youngsters, the old adage that you train a young, contest, and if you win for an essay, and you could win a trip to Egypt and things like that. We haven't done that for a long time. If you have an idea, let me say this: I don't run my trip. It may sound ironic to you. There's a woman sitting back there named Sister Kefa. She is the chairman of the committee that decide my trip. I don't go to lecture and make the decision I'm going to lecture. Dr. Lewis and his wife, they decide if I'm medically fit, could I go to this lecture or not? It sounds funny, right? No. A person has to know the limitations. My limitation is not in the business world. I am a poor businessman. If I sell a book for $5 and you came and said I only got 3, I said, well, here, have it, brother. You see? That's me. And if I got 10 hours in a day and I've used 9, and you said, brother, but you know, the sisters and the little brothers, I said, if you don't kick me more than a quarter of an hour. I forgot that by the time I finish with a quarter hour, it take me another half an hour to get home, and then I get no sleep, I go on the next day. So, basically, about my tours, you'll have to speak to her and the committee. About my lecture, you have to speak to her. So it's not up to me these days. The body is starting to wear tremendously. And the brother was talking about, I'm going to have to go home one day. I'm trying to delay it as much as possible. I try to delay it as much as possible.
Thank you.
All right, hold on. I can give it to you.
Right.
Keep on.
Hotel sisters and brothers, those of you who are interested in traveling to Egypt with Dr. Ben, we have one trip, of course, that was announced going December 25th through January the 8th. That's the Christmas trip. July, 95, we have a trip going the first 2 weeks in July, and another one the first 2 weeks in August. The person to contact is GG Travel. That telephone number is 1-718-778-8500. 1-718-778-8500. Call her, put your name on the list to travel with Dr. Ben, because we will be working that brochure out this week coming up. Dr. Ben and I will be working on the itinerary, giving it to her, so we can get the brochures out in December for the January, for the July and August trips. Any further questions? GG Travels in Brooklyn. GITI. The sister's name is Sister Gloria Goodwin. GOODWIN.
What about that?
Well, we haven't done that for a long time. So we may get back to that at some future date. Yeah. Because we did that through we did that through the First World. So we'll have to the First World Alliance. We did that essay through them. So we'll probably have to take that up and do it again through the First World, because we need an organization to do that through. Okay. All right. But now, I think, no, it was a restriction on the age because we had children going. There were young folks that we really wanted to get to Kemet. So that's what, they were young people who were going. Okay.
Thank you very much, Sister Kepler. Dr. Ben, Dr. Jeffries was in the back. He sends his regards. He said he had to go pick up his mother.
He has to do what?
His mother.
Well, mothers get blamed for everything.
My first question is the name Allah from the African goddess Allah.
I didn't.
Is the name Allah from the African goddess Allah?
It was in Mecca. There were 3 gods, three gods and goddesses, 3 goddesses worshipped by the ancient people of Mecca. One was Alat, one was Aluza, and the other was Al-Hala. Allah, all the difference changed between Allah and Allah, the male and the female. The last letter was changed from a T to a H. The T is always the female, the H is always the male.
Thank you. My next question is that you speak so highly of African women and bearing children. What kind of words of encouragement would you say to a black woman who can't bear children?
I am the father of, I'm now the father of 7 biological daughters. I used to be 8, one passed away, and a number of adopted daughters. I have one daughter who got pregnant on 3 different occasions but could not hold them for whatever the reason. She's always had trouble, even as a young girl, with a menstrual problem. I told her, like I tell all my other daughters and sons, there's too many out there, African kids, that you can't, don't tell me you can't have a kid. You can get and adopt one. She adopted one. She adopted a youngster with all kind of problems. He was beaten up by his mother, broken, his collarbone was broken by his mother, and she adopted him. He had a hell of a time with problems and all kind of things because he couldn't understand this kid. And she and her husband, I gotta give him 100% credit too, stuck with the kid. Many times it almost caused the marriage to break. But now that kid is at 17, is going to go. He went down, basically my daughter and her husband live outside of Chicago in a basically white neighborhood because of the job of her husband. And she would make sure that she went into Chicago every Sunday so that he could be in a black environment in the church. She joined a Baptist church where he could get as close down to the earth as she could get, so he could be with black kids. I'm proud to say that she raised her son, and he's my grandson, that he's going to be 17, and he went to different schools. He had 4 scholarships at white Ivy League school. He picked out Morris Brown when he went to different schools and grew up in a white neighborhood because of what my daughter and her husband had trained him. So I said, adopt. Adopt a little one, tiny one, so that you, in your case, let's say, or any other young woman, so you could grow with a child. I grew with most of my children. I'm 76, my oldest kid is 55.
Thank you, Dr. Ben.